Hello? Okay, there we go. All right, well, welcome everyone, and thanks very much for being here. If just a quick housekeeping announcement, if you're here for the underachiever and inexperienced panel, you're in the wrong room. Okay, this is this is an august group of highly successful professionals, and I'm really honored to moderate this panel. So let me just give a quick overview of what we're going to be focused on. It's really the notion of, as the title says, which I think is the longest panel title, but as the title says, it's really the notion of overcoming roadblocks in both, government oversight, but also really in, pilot to permanence, funding and finance, governance structure, and procurement. And each one of these panelists has an expertise in each or all of these areas. So let me start with a quick just introduction. I'm going to have the panelists talk a little more fully about each of themselves. But on the very far end, I'll go down there first. Parag is the Chief Mobility and Development Officer and Senior Director for the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. If you were up bright and early at 8 a.m. this morning, you heard him talk. Very first speaker this morning. He's actually been advancing the region's capital improvement plans, shaping future markets through innovation and collaboration. He has 20 years of experience leading high-performance service-oriented work environments. Next to him is Ben Limmer. Ben is the CEO and Managing Director of the Quad Cities MetroLINKs. He's recognized in the public transportation industry as a visionary, transformative, and collaborative leader. He's served in both the public and private sectors. He blends strategic planning, operations, and management responsibilities in all the work he's done. I would just have to mention that he is a former recipient of the Secretary of Transportation Ray LaHood's Man of the Year Award, which is quite prestigious. So next to Ben is Diana Mendez. Diana is a partner at Bilzin, Sumberg, Baena, Price, and Axelrod. Did I get it right? Okay, excellent. Spit it all out. All right, good. Diana's got 15 years of experience serving a variety of different clients in various sectors, but specifically she's an expert on government procurement and has pioneered a number of innovations in procurement, which she'll talk a little more fully about. And next to me is Thaniel, the Senior Director for Policy and Regulatory. I said it wrong, didn't I?
Yeah, you got it right. Policy and Regulatory Affairs.
No, your last name.
Thaniel,
I got it right, okay.
you got it right.
For Zoox, which is my favorite name. It's like a Dr. Seuss transportation company. It's fantastic. Innovative, imaginative, captures your imagination. So Ron is the Senior Director of Policy and Regulatory Affairs. He's focused on making transportation safer, cleaner, and more enjoyable. He previously served as the Director of Government and External Affairs for NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration at USDOT. Served as Vice President of Policy and Legislative Affairs at ITS America, the Intelligent Transportation Society of America, U.S. Conference of Mayors. So a broad and experienced portfolio for such a young man. Anyway, I want to welcome all of you. And let's go down the line to Parag, and you can fill in a little bit more what you're doing, Parag, in terms of both partnership and project delivery at the Mid-Ohio COG.
So thank you, David, for the introduction. As David mentioned, I'm Parag Argawal. I serve as the Chief Mobility and Development Officer at the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. Our friends call us MORPC. So if you're in this room, you are one of our friends, you can call us MORPC. We are a council of government of 15 counties of central Ohio. 2.3 million people, expected to be around 3.2 million by 2050. Columbus is the major city. Columbus is the second biggest city in the Midwest after Chicago. Central Ohio is considered to be one of the fastest growing regions in the Midwest. Since we are part of Midwest, it is very auto-centric community culture, and we want to work with our partners to change that. So the example which I want to share with you today, as the topic basically says, regulations without roadblocks. You have a program in place. I will talk to you about some of the challenges which we are facing, some of the policy challenges which we are facing, and how we are overcoming those challenges. So that's the key. We will all have those challenges in place, but how you overcome those challenges, that's the key. So in 2024, Central Ohio voters approved a transit referendum called Link Us. It will give us approximately $8 billion in the next 25 years for transit enhancements in Central Ohio. Out of this $8 billion, 27.5% of this $8 billion, which comes out to be $60 million every year, we are using it for sidewalks and trails connecting communities to transit stops. So if you look at generally a transit money, transit referendum cannot be used for sidewalks and road projects. But we went to the state legislature, we got our state statutes changed so that the transit money can be used for sidewalks and trails. So that's number one win. The Columbus voters, by 65%, they approved a transit referendum in November of 2024. The money has started flowing in. And now we came up with something called a regional CIP. So we work for cities and counties. We have our own CIPs, right, capital improvement programs. But our agency, MORPC, put together something called regional CIP of all the trails, sidewalk projects that can be constructed of the $60 million annually. So 5-year CIP comes out to be approximately $250 million for 5 years for sidewalks and trails. For 10 years, it's about $500 million. In 10 years, we are expecting approximately 500 miles of new sidewalks and trails by using this TSI money. We came up with the first CIP of 2026 and 2030. We are talking about 83 different projects with 55 different communities. So it's not only about one township, right? 55 different communities. I will talk to you a bit more, some challenges to it. But again, I just want to share this example in which transit money is being used for sidewalks and trails, coming up with a regional CIP that will include approximately $500 million in the next 10 years, 500 miles of sidewalks and trails. There have been many challenges along the way, and as the conversation moves forward, I will talk to you more about those challenges.
Great, thank you. And I just want to underscore the notion of an MPO focused on a regional CIP is definitely a roadblock breaker. I mean, that's a big deal. We have the largest MPO in Southern California called SCAG, which is not a poultry disease. It's actually the Southern California Association of Governments. But they represent 93 cities with a population of roughly 17 million people. What Parag is doing at MORPC is really, really innovative and something to really look at. Ben, the work you've been around, you've been in various cities doing all sorts of different work in the transportation sector. Tell us a little bit more about MetroLINK and kind of what your role is there, who you're serving, and really kind of how you're structuring things to break through some of the roadblocks that stand in the way of innovation.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, and thanks for having me on the panel. Ben Limmer, CEO, Managing Director of MetroLINK. It's a public transportation agency located 2 hours due west of Chicago. A lot of people have asked me, what part of Chicago is that? So it's 2 hours west, it's on the Mississippi River. I've been very fortunate to lead now 4 public transportation agencies and had a variety of roles at a handful of others. Kind of grew up in the capital planning, capital program management space. So this particular panel was of high interest to me professionally for sure. I've also had the opportunity to work on, I think, 9 voter-approved sales tax referendums, and to have a tax program pass that can pay for sidewalks and kind of the non-public transportation investments is huge. mean, I remember in Phoenix not even being able to put in a bus shelter because I couldn't use the regional sales tax for anything, even the concrete pad, but I'll put that, on the back burner for now. MetroLINK serves about 3.5 million people per year. We do have a pretty robust local bus system. We also have paratransit as well as flexible micro transit as well. And then everyone's favorite, we do have the Channel Cat passenger ferry system, which takes people back and forth across the mighty Mississippi River. So truly a multimodal agency. And then the end of last year, the Illinois State Legislature put the finishing touches on a $900 million plan to fund restoration of rail service from the Quad Cities to Union Station in Chicago. So at that point, we will truly be multimodal. Some of the big things that we are working on in addition to the rail project, which I think I will talk about quite a bit throughout this panel, is we were very early and ahead of the curve in investing in battery electric bus options as well as with our passenger ferry system. So we were early doing that, and so a lot of the not only retrofitting the operations and maintenance center, but having inline charging is something that we are investing and working in right now. It's under construction. We have a pretty robust customer experience program as well, so everything from tap to pay to modernize real-time information. We recently cut the ribbon on a downtown transfer center, which, you kind of mentioned it. I've worked at several transit agencies, and this is the nicest facility I have ever seen. So if you're ever in the middle of the Midwest, give me a call. Would love to show it off. And then also, we do more than just, transport people via public transportation. We will be the sole provider of non-motorized transportation options in the Quad Cities, as well as the EV charging infrastructure. And I know we're going to talk about more related to autonomy, so I will save that for later, but I'll pass it off to my colleague.
So yes, let me just say real quickly that Diana, as a practicing lawyer, has really been focused on the procurement system, and that's really, I've been at a couple panels today where we talked about procurement as being really cumbersome, an obstacle, difficult, all the different rules. If you screw something up, you're out, So I really am looking forward, Diana, to you talking a little bit about procurement.
Of course. Thank you. Hey, thank you, David. Diana Mendez. I'm a partner at Bilzin Sumberg. A little bit more on Bilzin. Bilzin is really very well known for being the firm behind many of South Florida's most transformative projects with respect to infrastructure and public-private partnerships. And so over 15 years, I've been working with private government contractors on advising on how to navigate the complex procurement process. And most recently, I was appointed and currently chair the special task force to reduce inefficiencies in procurement, STRIP, which is a task force that was created by the Board of County Commissioners for members of the industry and members coming from the legal side of procurement to review the county's processes and propose recommendations. We just finished our review process. It has been a process that's taken about a year, and are about to submit our report with recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. I'm also currently vice chair of the steering committee of the American Bar Association Public Contract Law Sections Model Procurement Code Revision Project. That project involves also the National State Association of Procurement Officials, where we are putting together attorneys that do procurement on the day-to-day, together with procurement officers to look at the current code that the model procurement that the ABA has, and which has been adopted in part by many jurisdictions, and seeing how we can how we can modernize that code to adopt and adapt really to the different delivery projects that we're seeing today, to adapt it to innovation. We have one of our committees is a committee involved in technology, making sure that procurement is working for the public entities as opposed to being a roadblock.
Thank you very much, Diana. And on my right here is Ron Thaniel. So Ron he's got an amazing story about Zoox and how Zoox came to be, and really it reminds me greatly, Ron, of the parable. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
All right, well, first of all, good afternoon, Miami. It is good being back at CoMotion. Thank you, David, as well, for inviting me to be on this panel. Again, I'm Ron Thaniel, Senior Director for Policy and Regulatory Affairs with Zoox. I also oversee political engagement. A little bit about Zoox. Zoox is an AI robotics company that is also building an autonomous vehicle. This is really quite a journey that I'm going to take you on today. We have the only ground-up purpose-built robotaxi operating on public roads in the US, actually anywhere in the world. And our vehicle is designed for the experience. It's campfire seating, stagecoach seating. It's the experience. It is designed for safety. Safety is foundational. More than 100 innovations in our vehicle that you will not find in a traditional car today, including redundancy. Just like an airplane, our vehicle has multiple systems that support redundancy in the vehicle. And of course, it's really important for us, and this is about sustainability. It's about leaving a clean footprint. Our vehicle is all electric, up to 16 hours per charge. And the exciting news that I'm going to share with you, as of Friday of this past week, Zoox is now operating our robotaxi in Miami. And that's really exciting for me. No one is, there we go, come on. So, this is for me. I've been an urbanist. I've been into transportation policy my entire career. I love cities. I believe cities are places of innovation and culture. And for me, having a Zoox robotaxi connect communities, bridge transit deserts with job opportunities, leave a cleaner footprint, reduce public health impacts. That's what we want in cities. We went through decades, in many ways, of unsustainable transportation investment, leading to congestion, smog, unsustainable development. We are turning that corner now to a future of cities that are cleaner and more affordable. And the Zoox robotaxi is leading that charge. Our vehicle, it's made in America. Made in America. We're creating American jobs, assembling our vehicle in Northern California. We're not bringing this from China, for example. Our components are sourced largely in the United States as well. That's a priority for this company. We've also had a laser focus on mission. Mission is so important for companies like this. If you take a look at our VC deck from 2014, the vehicle today looks very much like the vehicle back then. It's been a laser-focused mission. The outcome is a vehicle that is designed to operate in cities. The other thing is, it's really important to understand, we'll talk about more of this shortly. This is a global race. I was recently in Tokyo with NHTSA, our federal regulator, and the race is serious, and it's here. China, the United States. And we are competing with one hand tied behind our back. I want to talk about this, the challenges. We currently do not have one federal regulatory model for the United States. We have a patchwork approach. Each state can dictate what the rules are to play this game. We're not going to beat China doing that. And lastly, before we get into the conversation, cities. I started this conversation with cities, I'm going to end it with cities. In most cases, cities are not our regulator. And that's important, because we don't want to patchwork at the state level. Cities are our critical partner. I had the pleasure this morning to meet with the mayor of Miami-Dade and my team there, Adrian and Phil. It's so important that we understand how we can support cities, how we can complement mass transit, how we can grow their investment in mass transit. If we don't have a robust transit system, what we're trying to do will be a lot more difficult because we're part of that shared urban mobility. At some point in the day, you could get in our Zoox vehicle. If you're gonna get on a bus, a rail vehicle, you're gonna walk, you're getting a scooter. I know this firsthand. I didn't own a car until 2020. And so for us to be successful, we must invest in transit. And so my team here, now that we are in Miami, they're gonna meet with city officials, they're gonna meet with transit officials, and understand how we can support their vision for a more sustainable transportation future.
Thank you very much, Ron. And just to weave this all together, what you're getting here is the holistic aspects of overcoming roadblocks. It takes smart planning, it takes foresight, it takes mission, a focus on mission, it takes technology, and it takes really more than anything else an openness to do things differently. A little bit on my background very briefly, and then we're going to get some tough questions for the panelists here. So I represent probably a previous generation of innovation. We did the funding plan and created the Alameda Corridor, which spawned TIFIA, the infrastructure bank at the federal level. We created delivery models for LA Metro that still to this day were the only on-time and on-budget delivery of a light rail system in the entire county. We've done all of Disney's infrastructure at what was once going to be Westcott and is now California Adventure. It got downsized. We've done all sorts of studio master plans. We just did a take-back of an interstate highway for the city of Pasadena, inherited 50 acres overnight. All those things I'm blessed to have done all those things, but I'm really happy to be here having done what I consider to be past decades' work with people who are doing current work, people who are actually innovating today. I'm not going to go away tomorrow, but realistically, at 68 years old, I'm looking to slow down. So having people here that are doing this work for the future is important for my two children, and I think everybody's kids that are up here and in this room. So I just wanted to give that bit of background. What would be helpful is, and we don't have to go in any order, so I want you to jump in as you would like. But I'd like to know in your careers what you consider to be your biggest success in innovating, specifically overcoming resistance or roadblocks. I kind of sometimes refer to myself as the sand and the oyster. Sometimes it's just sand, and sometimes you get a pearl. But what in your experience created a breakthrough, created a different way of doing things, advanced the ball? So I open it up.
Sure. I mean, I can start. And this is really applicable. It's really the foundation for, I think, where we are all going to go with regard to what's going to be the next method to move people. I don't think that there's any doubt. Everyone in this room firmly believes that automation is coming fast. Whether it's automation of our vehicles, our facilities, or just AI's impact on the way government operates and transportation agencies operate. But the foundation for that, at least I can see it within my own career, is either building a new rail line like I did in Phoenix, or modernizing a rail line like I did in the Northeast, or kind of restoring a rail line, which I'm about to embark on now. There's multiple layers of government. The stakeholder coordination is extremely complex over a very long period of time. The political alignment that you need is also very, very complicated. I mean, you have to explain to an elected official, you're going to get the funding, and then another elected official is going to break ground, and then a third one's going to cut the ribbon. That's very difficult to get them on board. And what I have found is absolutely critical is making sure that your stakeholders get involved early, and that you really bring them along with the strategy that you are using to either build, modernize, or restore rail service. So I think that's the foundation, kind of that playbook, at least in years past throughout my career, that I'm absolutely going to use going forward when the new modern forms of mobility come as fast as they are coming, because they are coming. So,
if I can just add to what you mentioned again, I have similar experiences. So again, throughout my career, I have always been involved in these large multi-state, multi-county jurisdictional infrastructure projects. Before I went to Columbus, I was working in Polk County in Florida, in Central Florida. There we were working on Sunrail, extending Sunrail from Orlando to Tampa area, to Lakeland area. We were working on Brightline, extending a Brightline from Orlando to Tampa with a stop in Lakeland. And what I have always seen, all these big infrastructure projects which you are basically mentioning are very polarizing. Again, Polk County, very conservative community. We used to talk about, we used to get questions like, okay, how much will, you are basically asking for these billions of dollars, a ticket fare. Like how much will a ticket fare have to be to, so that we can invest in this project? But as we all know, it's basically the ticket box does not pay for these big infrastructure projects, which we all know that part. Even I will give you the example of what we are currently working on in Columbus, Ohio, and I will always share how we are overcoming those challenges. That's the main thing which I will share with you. So sometimes we feel funding is the main issue. But if you hear the community, sometimes funding is not the main issue. So I just told you, we have this funding through our transit referendum. We have around $60 million annually to pay for sidewalks and trails. 55 projects, 55 communities will benefit in the first year. Out of these 55 communities, 35 communities are having multi-jurisdictional projects. Again, sidewalks do not end on particular city or township line. Multi-jurisdictional projects. We are willing to give them $4 million, $2 million for a sidewalk, but those communities, they do not have bandwidth to take those infrastructure projects. That's the key. So we are working with something called Transportation Improvement District in Central Ohio, which is basically a state statute established organization in Ohio to take up these regional infrastructure projects to build things. So it's not like City of Dublin is building its own 1.5 miles of sidewalk, and then Dublin and Hilliard is building its own 2.4 miles of sidewalks. Again, you need to have an agency who can basically take on these regional projects. The second thing which we discovered, our money, state money, federal money is generally based on reimbursement basis, right? Majority of the federal grants which we get is based on reimbursement basis. Many of these smaller communities, they do not have seed money of X million dollars to invest on infrastructure. Here you are, right? So again, so we are basically working with communities to set up a revolver loan program, revolver fund. We are calling it to be advance fund. So we can advance, let's say $3 million, $4 million to a particular community. They can start the project, they can start implementation. But once they get reimbursement, they will pay back into this revolver loan program. Again, just want to basically emphasize infrastructure projects, especially the multi-jurisdictional infrastructure projects, it needs a lot of patience, a lot of communication, and it's not about, hey, this is my solution, I want to work with you. Understand what the problems are, what are their issues, and try to design solutions accordingly.
Yeah, David. And so I want to sort of tie all of these together with what I have seen with respect to Florida has been at the forefront of public-private partnerships. In 2013, our legislature passed one of the statutes that every time that I talk to practitioners in other areas, really Florida's public-private partnership statutes, it's pretty open, it's pretty flexible, and it opened up the opportunity for many municipalities and counties to consider this as an alternative method of delivery when there's a need for financing, and that's an important distinction between funding and financing for infrastructure projects, long overdue infrastructure projects. One of the projects that I can think of where it was a success altogether, not only for my client in that case, but also for Miami-Dade County that I can think of, is the Miami-Dade County's procurement for compressed natural gas services. It was the first time, so the public-private partnership statute was approved in 2013. In 2014, Miami-Dade County's transit department seized the opportunity of approaching the conversion of its fleet to compressed natural gas through a turnkey solution. So the county issued a request for proposals for a solution that would result in the design, build, finance, operation, maintenance of the new compressed natural gas facilities for county buses, and at the same time, the developer was in charge of coordinating and assisting the county in obtaining the new compressed natural gas bus fleet. At that time, the average age of the buses in Miami-Dade County was about 12 years, so it was one of the oldest bus fleets in the nation. And after this procurement, it's the average age of each bus is about 3 years, so it's actually one of the newest fleets. And it was largely a successful program. Now there's 560 compressed natural gas buses servicing Miami-Dade patrons, and overall it was a very complicated procurement as well, and we faced many challenges. It took several years to complete, but at the same time it resulted in a single solution for the county that it's now working, and it really improved the quality of transit to Miami-Dade residents.
Thank you. I just want to make one comment, and then I have a question for Ron as well. So public-private partnership isn't just a finance and funding mechanism, it's a delivery mechanism. It's holistic and done right. And Florida's number 2, I think, in the country in P3s, and I think Texas is number 1. Out in California, we're not quite there yet, are we? But in any event, it really is important because sometimes the best funding solution is a delivery solution. It's really integrated. So what Ron talked about, when you talked about 2014 and the mission, and we're in 2026, it suggests to me that you are not only laser focused on mission, but you have very patient capital. And that's a real missing link between private entrepreneurs who want to go fast and get something and hit that quarterly bottom line number versus the long view, which is really how do we change our entire operating system to improve cities, just like you talked about. So maybe you could address that a little bit with what you're doing at Zoox.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I've had the pleasure and honor to serve a mayor of Minneapolis, to be a political appointee to the governor of New York. I was Deputy Secretary for Transportation, and of course, a political appointee in the White House to the U.S. Department of Transportation, NHTSA. And throughout those stages of my career, and it continues with Zoox, there are a number of principles that hold. Number one, safety is foundational. Whether it's a mega project in New York State, the Tappan Zee Bridge, for example, you don't build a bridge like that without having a clear understanding that safety is foundational. Now, look at Zoox. Mark Rosekind, who was the NHTSA administrator under President Obama, was our first Chief Safety Innovation Officer. He brought a culture of safety is foundational to everything that we do at Zoox. One person at Zoox can stop everything. That's really important. Safety is foundational. Two, transparency. Whether it is with our federal regulator, NHTSA, or state official, or city official, or community member in Edgewater, or transparency, no surprises. That is so important to this company. And three, innovation, American innovation. Again, we're doing something that no one has ever done in the history of this world. We're putting on public roads a robot, a robotaxi, carrying the public. We have a tremendous obligation to earn the faith and trust of regulators. That's really important. You know, we are, it's just, I invite everyone here at some point over the next year, either to ride the robotaxi here in Miami or one of our other locations. It is something to be proud of from a safety standpoint. Remember, we're going to reduce fatalities on our roadways. The robotaxi does not drive impaired, does not drive distracted. What we're doing is something that is a moonshot at the end of the day to transform how we move in this country. And so, yeah, it's just an honor to be here talking about this technology and talking about American innovation. And one last point, because I see Davey about to talk. Okay. Yeah, this innovation is complicated and it's hard. That gets to your point of capital. This has been a long journey, and it's been a laser-focused journey. We started out as a typical Silicon Valley company, raising VC dollars. Thankfully, about 5 years ago, Amazon, we became part of the Amazon family. So we are an independent subsidiary of Amazon. To go the distance and to do it right without cutting corners, you need a parent company like us who understands patience and is willing to wait for that reward at the end of the day, and that's the capital piece at the end of the day. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm going to pivot and ask everybody here, and I'll give you an example. What was your biggest, and I don't want to say biggest, what was the most prominent failure you had, but that taught you how to do it differently going down the line? So my example is, we had a light rail line, 13-mile light rail line from LA Union Station to the community of Pasadena and served 3 different cities. That line ballooned from a $600 million project to a $1.1 billion project in a year. Clearly it was being undermined, it wasn't going to get built. I got hired to help the city of Pasadena figure out how do we get the money. And I said, well, actually, we're thinking about money differently. I think we have to look at delivery. We have to look at a different model. So we ran a piece of state legislation, created a design-build authority comprised of all the cities. We took all the money that was on account at the regional agencies and the cities, put it into the construction authority, delivered the project on time and on budget. no additional cost. So that 1.1 billion disappeared, okay? So I thought, what a great model. I'm going to convince Metro to do this on every single project in LA County. I mean, we're doing hundreds of billions of dollars of projects in LA County. Shot down terribly, okay? Politics. So I learned a lot from that. I'm not going to go on, but let me ask Ben, you start.
Yeah, sure. Great question, because, we come to these conferences and we talk about all the cool stuff we're doing, and we are all doing cool stuff. But I think you can learn as much, if not even more, from, taking calculated risk and maybe not achieving the outcome that you wanted to achieve, or just straight up, to be blunt, not going all the way, not crossing the finish line. I touched on it earlier. Mistakes with these projects or programs often happen because you don't engage the financial side and the political side before, or at least concurrent with, all the technical aspects of a project. So it's really the three-legged stool, but you need to make sure that the political side and the financial side come first. And a lot of the mistakes happen because we just haven't done this in the correct sequencing. Also, if with that said, if you can't sell the project to the layperson and communicate what it is using regular language in digestible chunks, you've lost it. Like, you won't get the political support, and you will likely not get the financial support either. And so just being able to translate things in a way that resonates with people who don't come to CoMotion every year. So I know it sounds simple, but it's one of the most frustrating things for me. Real quick, a project that I was working on was an automated bus rapid transit line in the Northeast on the, it's called the CT Fast Track. It's just outside Hartford, Connecticut. It's a dedicated guideway. It's an abandoned rail line. It's a combination of an Amtrak and a freight railroad line that got turned into a bus rapid transit. We were ready to automate it, got the vehicles. They're still sitting somewhere in Maryland. But we were not able to navigate the insurance piece of it, nor could we navigate the legal aspect of it. It came down to who is liable when type thing. And ultimately, I lost the patience at the top political office in the state because we were navigating the insurance and the legal aspect of it. And so I don't have any silver bullet or magic potion to fix that, other than I've been or had been presenting all over the country about what didn't work, why didn't it work, to make sure that I could communicate lessons learned to as many people as possible. So I'll pass it off for others.
So I think there's a natural transition here in what doesn't work. I think to avoid revealing any client confidences, I'll just go over what I've seen most of the time results in failed projects. With the enactment of the P3 statute, one of the very special characteristics of the statute is that private actors can reach out to municipalities and submit unsolicited proposals for projects. And then there is a process where the counties and municipalities review those unsolicited proposals and determine whether it provides a solution to an issue that they're facing. And so since the adoption of the statute, Florida has become essentially a laboratory of public-private partnership projects, and we've seen some of them be very successful, and we've seen some of them fail. most of the time, the reason why these projects fail, and Ben alluded to it, is not engaging stakeholders early on in the process. And by early on, I mean before you even identify the delivery method. So we've seen some cases where municipalities get proposals from a private party. Usually they involve, let's say, the municipalities need to renovate their city hall, their civic centers. They don't have the funding for it, so they leverage land that they have available that potential developers see as valuable for mixed-use projects, commercial projects, and so they proposed a plan where you would have, the private party would rebuild the civic center, the public facilities, in exchange for a ground lease of county or municipal land, and with the revenues that they obtain from land, from that ground lease and from the development, they would pay off the public infrastructure. And that has been a very successful model. In some cases, what happens is that if the municipalities go full into a fast speed on moving forward with the project without asking whether the scope of the project is, for example, proportional to what the residents of the municipality want, and engage in a very large or potentially more dense project that the area is used to, you can get into trouble for that. You can get into trouble for planning a large scope project when, for example, if what was needed was a parking garage, and instead you got a full development with lots of new residential that it's going to drive a lot of traffic. If you start off that way without asking the residents what they want, by the time that you go to referendum, you're going to be surprised that after spending significant time finding the right partner, negotiating the relevant documents, that when it comes to the referendum fails because it didn't get enough public support. So early stakeholder approval, it's a must.
I'm going to give you two examples. The first one is from my time both in government and as a lobbyist in Washington. We still do not have a federal framework overseeing autonomous vehicles. I started working on this when I was with the governor in New York back in 2015. Spent a number of years as a lobbyist in Washington. The most promising opportunity was 2017 when the House cleared a bill. It was called Self-Drive Act. The Senate started working on the bill. It stalled. It's 2026, and we're no closer. That's disappointing. Now, my team and my company were committed to go state by state by state by state. And now we're beginning to see states look at design requirements. This is a federal authority. Now, could you imagine a future where you have one state that tells us your vehicle must be orange, another state says, oh, no, to operate on a road, the vehicle must be yellow? That's not going to work. That's a small example. We're talking about complicated technology that should have a national standard, not state by state. We're not going to win this race. I'm going to go at a personal level, too. So I grew up in Baltimore, and I grew up on a transit line. And I knew that if I didn't have access to good transit, I couldn't get to school. Opportunities were much more limited for me and my family. After working in government, Minneapolis worked on a major transit investment when I was with the mayor back then as her policy aide for transportation and public works. New York State, quite proud. We got the largest investment in the MTA in the history of New York State when I was there back in 2015. They've increased investment since, and also with President Biden, Secretary Pete, with infrastructure law. Increased investment in mass transit. We have too many transit deserts still, though. We have too many communities left out still. Now, at Zoox, and this is something I'm really proud of, we are laser focused on working with transit agencies on first mile, last mile opportunities. And I think finally we're going to get there. Now, we're going to help the transit agencies extend the reach of the agency. We're going to provide the opportunity for people that live there for better jobs, better education, better health care, all those betters. And that, for me, will be supremely rewarding, coming from a place where, yes, I rode the transit bus in Baltimore, the number 3 in the 36. And if they went away, I would probably be still in Baltimore today. Now, we have an opportunity to fix this, and we can fix it through what we're doing at Zoox, at first mile, last mile, through autonomous mobility as a service.
Great, wonderful. A quick example, Parag.
So I will just say two things. Number one, my background is in city planning. So as a city planner, what Diane, you basically mentioned working with the communities. Sometimes when we are working on big infrastructure projects, we forget the impact those infrastructure projects will have on the communities, even at the construction phase. Many of the businesses are out of business because the construction takes 4 and 5 years to happen. So that's, well, again, unintended consequences of these large infrastructure projects. That's one. The second thing which I will talk about is basically Central Ohio, we are working on the passenger rail. We are getting support from FRA, we are getting support from Brightline, we are getting support from our business communities. Local communities are totally on board, but without a support from the state. The state of Ohio is neutral at the best or negative sort of a thing. So again, you are basically trying to advance these big infrastructure projects without state support. That's the second thing which I will say.
Thank you. So I want to leave a little bit of time for questions. I just want to kind of cap this by indicating that, you know, with all these great examples, both successes and disappointments and lessons learned, if you will, you know, I hope everybody in the room takes away, you know, something that you can do. I'm reminded of maybe you've heard this, but the story of the little girl who's on the beach about 5 years old, and the tide has gone out, and there's like thousands of starfish that are stranded. And so she is bending over and picking up a starfish and throwing it out into the surf, one at a time. And an old man comes along and says, you know, he kind of smiles and shakes his head, and gosh, you know, I think it's wonderful what you're doing, but you know, you can't make a difference to all of these. The little girl bends over and she picks up a starfish and she throws it out to sea. And she turns to him and said, made a difference to that one. So take away that, you know, you can make a big difference in any space that you choose to. All right, questions? Yes, sir. Can you stand up and just give your name and...
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Jim Erickson, HNTV, Transit Rail Lead in South Florida. Miami-Dade has a Metro Connect system that they're establishing for that first mile, last mile. You know, it's going through like anything that's just starting out, some hiccups along the way, but there's, I mean, that's, as you mentioned, that's a critical piece relative to the connection of an existing system. But I just wanted to bring that point up. But then also the question is that, you know, with the current political climate, I mean, there is, you start a project, you have everything, you know, moving forward, but then there's a change, not just in the state and specific to Florida, not just in the state, but in the feds. So, I mean, you can establish a lot of the relationships along the way, and I think in the big picture on the federal side, there is some concurrence relative to packages and projects, but you know, what kind of, you know, my question is how do you deal with the, you know, the current situation that we're in?
Go ahead,
Sure, I can start. From an autonomous vehicle standpoint, we have been fortunate. I was in the Biden administration, and we had a team that was very focused on American leadership. That continues under the Trump administration with Secretary Duffy, Jonathan Morrison, who is, of course, the administrator of NHTSA, and also the White House, Michael Kratsios. We have been fortunate. Both administrations understand that for the future of this technology, it has to be a priority. And so from our standpoint, we've been fortunate to have that.
Yeah, I get asked this question quite a bit. You know, as public agencies, we're slow to embrace, slow to pivot and change. It takes a very long time to build up momentum. You know, I mentioned the sales tax programs that, you know, I've been a part of. It takes an agency several years to even like wire itself correctly to deliver on what the voters expect. I say all that to say, though, a significant change in policy direction can just burst the bubble, like immediately. And it can take a significant amount of time to build your agency back up, to get that momentum back to where you were. You know, it takes a lot of time. What I have found a little bit that works is make sure that your agency has a vision and a long-term plan, and that you organize your agency around delivering those outcomes, and do not waver. Don't chase the shiny object in the corner just because it's there. Like, for example, we went from you couldn't get a bus grant if you weren't going to purchase a battery electric bus to if you had a word that starts with the letter B in your grant application, you're done. And so those are two very, I'm probably being a little dramatic because happy hour is like in an hour, but you know, those are two different ends of the spectrum. But the most critical thing is make sure that you're wired and organized for success in the future, and don't waver from your long-term vision.
Long view, very, very long view. It's really important. Parag. And we got quick answer and
So,
one or two more questions.
I will deviate a little bit from you, if that's okay. So I will say two things. Messaging. The previous administration was all about equity. We do not want, the new administration does not want to hear equity. Second thing which I will say is, first is messaging. The second is know your stakeholders, know your champions. So yes, there might be some federal, there might be some change in federal priorities, but there might be some other stakeholders who are still interested in your vision. Business community, state level, again, there might be some other people. One should be flexible enough to understand what are the funding sources which are available and where you can go to. Again, try to come up with your champions. As you are saying, vision is the key, and messaging is always there.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, Dan Epstein from CoMotion. To those 2 points, and we're looking at the title with the roadblocks with policy and capital, I'm curious what role storytelling plays in the work that you all are doing, and then thinking about not only financial capital, but social capital, political capital, cultural capital in these new burgeoning fields, and how are you prioritizing that in the work that you're doing?
So for me, storytelling is everything. When you're talking about transportation projects, road project, it's not only about congestion mitigation. You are trying to tie this with safety initiatives. You're trying to tie transportation projects with economic development initiatives. We are talking about passenger rail. Our state does not support passenger rail, but it does support economic development. So how can you support passenger rail with economic development, with job creations, with job retention? So I will say storytelling is everything. You should know your basically the folks who make the decisions, and you basically have to talk their language.
Yeah, you really have to build the culture. A big part of my role is building the culture in the communities that I serve to do exactly what you just said, to cover all those aspects of a community and doing these programs and projects.
Okay, I know that one more, and you good, or you have a question? Go for it.
Just very quick question. Johnny Combe, the CEO of Pay by Phone. We work with municipalities across the world, multiple different countries. I'm really keen to understand from a couple of the panelists your perspective on lobbyists as it relates to the procurement process and the importance or not.
Well, one of the unique, I think, characteristics of local and state procurement, and I think more so local, is that procurement is very intertwined with policy. It's when you look at how federal government, which works, the procurement aspect of it is very procedural. It has a lot of separation, and also, especially federal and state, you have the separation between the legislature and the administration and the procurement of goods and services. Municipalities and counties are a very different animal. You essentially have the legislature, which is the councils and the Board of Commissioners, being very involved in the day-to-day of procurement. And so that does require having people that understand the priorities of the elected officials, and I understand, for example, from the perspective of the elected officials and why policy becomes so integrated with procurement. It's because they are the face to the stakeholders, to the residents, when it comes to delivering results. So they're going to be very, very involved in the process, and particularly at the local level, it is important to have eyes on the ground and ears plugged in to know what are everybody's priorities, and being, obtaining advice and counsel with respect to that.
All right, what I'd like to do is I want to thank this wonderful panel, and if you could please give them a nice round of applause. Thank you all for being here, and enjoy the rest of CoMotion.